every August, something happens to the zinnias in your garden. The flowers that made everything look effortless a few weeks earlier begin to change. Blooms start fading. Stems get longer. The plant looks a little tired, a little crowded, a little less determined than it was in June. And this is where most gardeners make the same mistake. They leave it alone. After all, the plant is still flowering. Why interfere with something that seems to be working? But August and September can actually be some of the most important weeks in a zinnia's entire flowering season. So the real question isn't, is it still flowering? The better question is, what is the plant doing with the flowers that have already finished? Because once a flower fades, the plant has a decision to make. It can keep putting energy into new flowers, or it can start moving towards seeds. That tiny choice is where the whole story begins. A flower isn't there just to make your garden look beautiful. It's part of the plant's reproductive process. And once it's done its job, the plant can begin developing seed instead of another bloom. If you want seed for next year, that's completely fine. But if you want your zinnias producing deep into late summer, leaving every faded flower on the plant may work against that goal. This is why deadheading matters. Not because it tidies the bed, but because of what it interrupts. Remove a spent flower before the plant puts more resources into seed development, and you can encourage continued flowering rather than simply leaving every finished bloom in place. That's the first thing most gardeners misunderstand about late-season zinnias. But there's a second problem. Because by August, some zinnias don't just have spent flowers, they have spent growth. Stems stretch, the base looks bare, flowers cluster at the tips of long, tired stalks. Simply removing dead blooms isn't always enough here. You have to read the whole plant. Is it still compact and pushing new growth? Or has it become a tall structure carrying flowers mostly at the ends of long stems? Those are two different situations, and they don't deserve the same cut. This is where the August reset comes in. Not a blind haircut. Not cutting everything back because a date on a calendar says so. But something selective and intentional. Removing growth that's already done its job while leaving enough healthy structure for the plant to rebuild. From some zinnia growers, do use late summer cutting to encourage a stronger next flush. But that doesn't mean every zinnia in every garden needs it. Good gardening isn't memorizing a date and repeating the same action on every plant. It's learning to read the one in front of you. A healthy, compact zinnia covered in new buds may need nothing more than regular deadheading. A tall, stretched plant with fading flowers may need selective cutting. A plant stressed by heat or poor conditions is a different story entirely. The calendar gives you a clue. The plant gives you the final answer. And this is where many gardeners make another mistake. They cut for appearance instead of cutting for growth. Don't simply remove a long stem because it looks untidy. Look first for healthy leaves, new shoots, or developing buds. Those are the parts you want to preserve. If you do cut, make the cut where the plant still has healthy growth below it, giving the plant somewhere to continue. You're not trying to make the zinnia smaller. You're trying to give it a better place to grow from. Timing matters here too. Wait until the plant is fully exhausted, covered in mature seed heads, and you're asking it to recover from a much harder position. Intervene while it's still healthy and actively growing, and you're redirecting growth while the season is still on your side. This is also why regular harvesting is so powerful. If you're growing zinnias as cut flowers, don't be afraid to cut. A healthy zinnia isn't a museum piece, and cutting regularly can encourage continued production. Sometimes the way to get more flowers is to stop trying to keep every flower you already have. Apply the same logic to deadheading. Don't wait until a bloom has fully collapsed and the seed head has matured. When the petals fade and the display is clearly finished, remove it cleanly down to a healthy set of leaves or a branching point. You're not just removing something ugly, you're making room for the next stage of growth. If the plant has gotten tall and leggy, look for healthy growth below the spent flowers. That's where the next flowering structure can develop. The key word is selective. Don't strip the plant bare and don't treat every variety as if it grows the same way. There's one more mistake worth avoiding. Don't turn this into a fertilizer problem. When flowering slows late in the season, the instinct is to add more food, more nitrogen, more fertilizer, more of something. But if the real issue is that flowers have finished and the plant is shifting towards seed, more fertilizer isn't necessarily the answer. The better question is simpler. Have you been removing the flowers that already finished? And does the plant still have healthy, active growth capable of another flush? Those two questions can tell you more than a bottle of fertilizer ever will. Because the goal isn't to force something unnatural, it's to work with the growth pattern the plant already has. By September, the payoff can show up. Where you once had long stems carrying a few tired flowers, you'll start seeing fresh shoots, new buds, new branching, and eventually another wave of color. Not because you tricked the plant, but because you understood the moment it needed a different kind of attention. Your zinnia doesn't need you to preserve every flower. It needs you to understand which ones have already finished their job. The flower you refuse to cut may remain on the plant and move towards seed. The flower you remove at the right time can help keep the plant in a cycle of continued flowering. And suddenly, August isn't the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the second act. So the next time you walk past your zinnias in August, and the garden doesn't look quite as fresh as it did in July, don't assume the season is over. Look closer. Find the flowers that have finished. Find the stems that have gotten tired. Find the new growth still pushing forward, and make the smallest, most purposeful cut the plant actually needs. The best gardeners aren't the ones who cut the most. They're the ones who know what to cut, when to cut it, and why. You're not taking flowers away. You're making room for the next ones. Tell me in the comments, are your zinnias still producing heavily in August, or do they start looking tired by the end of summer? And if you've ever given your zinnias a late season cut, tell me what happened afterward. Your garden is not failing you. It is teaching you. I will see you in the next file.